I'm super excited about this conversation today. As we promised when we started these, these are a little bit different from some of our other things that we do with webinars and teaching you how to do things with different products. These are and showing you examples, demos, those type of things. These are more designed to be a conversation with people that we're working with, people that I've met during my experiences in this field. And very, very excited to have Dylan Clark on. I'll let him introduce himself more. But today's conversation is all going to center around data culture. And we've all talked about data culture in the past. It's something that, is probably an overblown term for sure. But what does it really mean in organizations who are still struggling? And we scratched down some notes. Oddly enough, and this is something that's been there for years and years, the statistics out there are still 74% of organizations are still struggling to really get full use out of their data. And the amount of increase you can get from just taking on little pieces of data culture within your organization, the jumps that you can have in profit, efficiency, those things are astounding. And so I think, the conversations I have, organizations are still struggling to get everybody on the same page. And so I thought this would be a great topic for us to really bring on someone like Dylan, who's done this at multiple places and really share from his experiences. So thanks, Dylan, for coming. Dylan Clark, as I mentioned before, he's a AVP of Enterprise Analytics. That's a big title. And when you say enterprise at a company like MedStar that you're working with, that's a big job. So excited to see how you're going to do there. I know you're probably just a couple months in that job, working with other organizations that are in that area, University of Kansas Health System, CHI Health, OU Health. Certainly not your first one, which is what I thought was exciting when we started looking at, what we want to talk about is seeing how, at the University of Kansas Health System, you talked about establishing data science organization within there. CHI Health established a new analytics team, and even more exciting, just seeing the impact you had, 3.9 million in economic growth there. It's super in 8 months. Same thing, in OU Health, and of course now in your new one that you're just getting started in with MedStar Health. I wanted to take a minute to introduce you, but also just really get a chance to be able to give you a little bit of time just to kind of introduce yourself a little bit more, but then jump right into the questions so we can talk about really what is your experience, kind of how you approach it, process, things that you use along the way. So I'll let you kind of introduce yourself and we'll jump straight into the questions, Dylan.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. What I'm super excited about this is just for the audience to know is one of my first time in my career. I first met Tim Howard as my first ever consultant in an organization to work with as an intern. And so it's been kind of off to the races ever since then. But my name is Dylan Clark. I am MedStar Health's Assistant Vice President of Enterprise Analytics. I've been with the organization going on 4 months. I'm actively on a 6-week paternity leave right now, and so utilizing this as kind of some time to get away from the family and talk a little bit about data and talk shop for Tim. So I appreciate the opportunity. But I've been in analytics the last 12 years. I've been in healthcare analytics the last 9, and started off as a good practitioner with inside of a business intelligence shop, with inside of the financial services arena underneath a gentleman by the name of Matthew Crouch, where I learned a lot about a lot of different roles and opportunities. And for the last 9 years, it's been really dedicated towards transitioning over into the healthcare space, at the University of Kansas Health System, which I really found my mission and my passion around how do we utilize healthcare analytics to really make an impact in patients' lives, but also help impact our health systems and our healthcare system in a lot of different facets, whether that be improving operational efficiencies, finding new revenue streams, finding new ways that we can help improve outcomes in the provider space. And for the last 9 years, I've been kind of finding my niche and kind of defining what new data teams are. And this is actually my first time here at MedStar Health to actually inherit a team where there has been significant investment and where there has been leadership in place for the last 6-7 years on kind of this analytics journey. And so for the last 4 months, really have just been really designated towards this idea of doing listening tour, getting to know the organization, understanding the work that has been done before me and those around me, and really just understanding what is going right, what is going wrong, what are our opportunities. And as I think about my career and as I do a look back, I really appreciate the opportunity to help lead data teams. It's something that I find immense value in, immense amount of gratitude, but also helping and also learn from mentors around you and kind of that 360 perspective to where you get to grow your career, but you also get to see people's lives inside and outside the workplace comes something just to fruition.
Yeah, and that's awesome, Dylan. And first of all, I did have it in my notes. We've talked about this a number of times last week, but I was amiss in saying congratulations on the new baby and your first foray into fatherhood. That supersedes all the stuff that we have to talk about here. But this is still fun and important, obviously. And as you mentioned before, I don't want to talk about how long it's been since we met back at DST. But you know, that was a lot of fun there, establishing there. But I know you've done a lot of things outside of that. You know, leaving there for University of Kansas health system to be able to kind of get into the healthcare realm of things. And we're not really focusing on that. And we got people in here from different realms, but I know that's important because the things that you guys do there make an impact in people's lives. So it's super exciting. And again, and not to mention, I did also forgot to mention that you are also, an adjunct professor at Rockhurst University. So giving back, which is really awesome. So with that being said, let's jump straight in. So this is the meat of it. We want to kind of get into, your experiences. And again, this is why we brought you on. I really want to be able to hear kind of your thoughts on how and experience from doing this. Starting with the very first thing that, as we're all looking at what we want to do with our lives and careers, when you start looking at, what your first or next step, where you're going, kind of what is your process for looking at organizations you might want to work for? How do you make those choices? And what do you want to do with those organizations, the type of positions that you're actually going after?
Yeah, whenever I found MedStar Health, I was not actively in the market. I wasn't really seeking. But I want to give a big shout out to a woman by the name of Katie Bauer. She's the head of data with Gloss Genius. And learn about Katie and kind of her journey that she just recently started at Gloss Genius on another podcast. And that's the great thing about this community is there's so many different podcasts and ways and mediums of learning. But that podcast gave me an opportunity to think about what I was looking for in my career and my next opportunity. And, I always look, I always encourage people to look at an organization's mission. Is it something that you can get behind? Is it something that you can morally support? And at the end of the day, that's so important. We all have different ways of kind of giving back and what makes us kind of tick and what we feel satisfied in our careers, which is such an important aspect because we spend more time with our coworkers at the end of the day, digitally and virtually, than we do our own family more than likely throughout the 40-hour work week of what that is. But from there as you understand the mission, begin to, look at job descriptions. Each job description, each position is insanely different. A head of data position could be insanely different than a head of data position at another organization. It could be running a data engineering team, or it could be running a data analytics insights team. And so as I kind of went throughout my opportunity and just interviewing with MedStar Health, I ultimately looked for the appetite for data leadership. And what are you essentially walking into? Are you creating a brand new team? Are you potentially taking and inheriting a new team? And as you do that evaluation, as you go from meeting organization to organization, you're trying to help it understand what is the purpose of the job. What are they trying to get out of analytics? And if it's something that seems cool, that seems really appealing and appeasing, it may feel like the right opportunity. But something that I definitely don't want to forget about is ensure that you're working for an organization. Well, you may want to work for the ideal organization that works for you. I think one thing that I always encourage new data leaders is always look for the right leader that you can work alongside with, that respects you, that someone that is engaging, someone that is really that you can learn and grow from. And we want to make sure that we can do this on a 360 perspective, not just where we learn from them, but where they can learn from us and those around us. And don't be afraid to interview with multiple organizations. This is a big world, it's a big place, it's a big industry. And so as you find that right opportunity, that's good look, culture fit, the mission really seems solid, there's good solid investment, the intellectual aspect of the job seems appealing and appeasing, but it gives you the opportunity to learn and grow. Those are some of the key critical functions. And for me, for MedStar Health, it was a lot of modernization and a lot of opportunity to kind of continue to grow a team, but also learn and grow from a leader that focus around the executive presence element, which is an area that I want to continue to invest in myself to continue to grow.
Yeah, and I love that. And I like the thing that you mentioned before, when you're really digging into an organization, finding out kind of what their goals are. We've looked at this with a lot of our clients when we start first having conversations, and some of them publish it, some of them go through the process of doing their own evaluations and putting out, these are our top 10 objectives for this year, or, these are our cornerstones for organization. Truly understanding what that is and making sure that you're aligning with those is huge. Make sure that any projects that you're wanting to take on are going to get received well, get funded, as we all are trying to get things funded when we're getting an organization. And just there's a lot there that I think that is missed. So many people especially people who are already in the job, getting bombarded with, I need reports on this, or I need you to do this, this, and this, pushing back on those things and say, really need to focus on the things that I know from an enterprise level that are going to create value for the organization. I think that's something that's often missed. So I appreciate you bringing it up. To kind of branch off on that, and especially where you are right now, I think this is even a more relevant question. When you're starting in a new organization like you are doing now, kind of what is your process for how you start filling your way into the organization, understanding, within the organization, where are opportunities to be able to get in? We talked, some about maybe understanding enterprise goals and things like that. But beyond that, are there certain people that you're wanting to talk to when you first get in the organization, understand what the top priorities are, and how you get that information kind of out of people so you can start doing what you need to do?
Yeah, I want to give 2 shout outs on this particular question per se. There's a gentleman by the name of Ryan Souza, who I would say is my career mentor, who's the VP of, who's a VP with a company called Pivot Point, and another woman by the name of Sol Rashidi, who I just found out about on another podcast, right? Yeah. So it shows a little bit about how much podcasting I do and too much of it. But as I was preparing for MedStar Health, I do a look back in my career and took some suggestions and intake. Data leadership is all about style. It's all about relationships. And my first 90 days at MedStar was doing a ton of speed dating and essentially meeting with different associates across the organization, meeting with the senior leadership team, meeting with your key stakeholders. Ideally, more than likely, those key stakeholders are determined by people that are on your enterprise data governance council. People are direct reports or delegates of theirs. But in addition to that, as we think about MedStar Health, we have 360 analytics plus professionals across our care continuum. Yeah. And so we're going to go meet with those other analytics leaders, and you're of utmost importance to your team and your analytics team as well, to where you can begin to do that listening tour, to where you can understand the good, the bad, the ugly. What are the advantages and disadvantages of going across the core, across the common, and across the local domains, as we each have disparate business units. And as you do that listening tour, understand the purpose and the why behind analytics. What goals do they have in vision? What work has been done prior? What's working, what's not working, in addition to what recommendations or use cases that you have. And as you go about that, consistently reiterate each day and spend about an hour each day as you complete that speed dating on organizing the good, the bad, and the ugly around that core, the common, the local, in people, process, technology, data culture, and your data assets. And as you begin to do that, that really begins to start to influence with where you are with the organization and where you need to continue to go and continue to grow. And that takes time. And just keep in mind is that as a new data leader, a lot of individuals always encourage data leaders, or a lot of people in the industry encourage new data leaders not to do anything for 5 to 6 months, and it's just straight listening. I want to really challenge that aspect where the average data leader tenure is anywhere between 1.5 to 2.5 years. And so as you think about it, you're looking at potentially only a 9-month stint to potentially start creating change and see the impact. And so it has to be this good blend versus small wins versus good strategic wins, where you can bring people along with and do it as fast, but do it as intellectually in a good style.
Yeah, no, I love that. And have those conversations again, I know is a big part of it, really understanding from, the stakeholders, whether it's, the people who are, whatever business areas that you're trying to work with, what are their issues within, understanding from IT, what are our capabilities, what tech stack do we have? How are we looking at those opportunities to be able to do things? Because it all takes tech to do this. Is certainly, I know, something that we do when we're getting into a business as well from the very beginning, is really understanding those things. So, yeah, there's a lot of stuff there that we can unpack. But before we do that, I want to just kind of take a step. And I like how you mentioned that, the duration of most people in these positions is not as long as it should be, for sure, because it doesn't give you that 5 to 6 months a lot of times. So you kind of, in every project we're getting into, we're always talking about where can we start having some immediate impact, even if it's not, the full impact we're trying to get to, but how do we start making those impacts along the way? That's very important. So how do you kind of take all that you've worked with, all the people you're talking to, the different conversations you have, all your findings from whether it's, 5 months or whether it's, 2 months of work, and do you have kind of a process for how you start working to create strategy around that, to create roadmaps, to create what are our next steps to go from these are the things that we want to do to these things that we're doing, the actual actions out of that.
Yeah, I think it's different for each organization, and it's different at every organization, right? As I've gone from opportunity to opportunity, this is my now third time at the helm, alongside other leaders here at MedStar Health, as we have a big analytics team and a big analytics community of practice, to where you have to work with individuals, to where there's formal leadership and informal leadership responsibilities. And so for me, it's all about the listening tool. It's all about listening. It's consistently reviewing the opinions around you and those leaders, really to assess where the opportunities and what matters most. It's around this idea of how do you take your first 90 days and turn that into a strategy within 180 days. I think, unfortunately, gone is the 5-year strategy around technology on how much our industry continues to change. But instead, recategorizing what the first 180 days to 365 days. And what I've been utilizing for a strategy here at MedStar Health is really kind of looking at that framework of data, culture, people, process, technology, and our data assets, and really combining that with this kind of theme that I've kind of taken from Soul Rashidi around this idea of on how do you approach the core of the hub, the common of your analytics community, and the local domains and the challenges that they you bring. And you complement that with Ryan Souza's approach around data and analytics, which is as you approach a community and an organization, you have these ideas of a common data platform, or what he calls community platform. But in addition to that, is really beginning to combine that with your community programs as well. And community programs meaning such as a data fluency, a data governance program, a data enablement program. And as you begin to do that, I think it's important to start focusing on what the operating model that exists today, and what are things that are potentially from that operating model. Are you working in a highly decentralized, highly matrix organization? Are you working in a centralized model? Are you working in a hub and spoke model? And as you start thinking about that and those key players in the organization, that helps you influence if you are over a hub and have that enterprise-based scope. That really helps influence as far as where you should be investing in your time and in your team. In addition to that, what is the team that already exists? And that's something that's new for me. I'm coming into an organization where a team has existed for quite some time. As you need to ensure you have the right people, the right operating model, you have the right style that works for the organization, as that really helps us understand what are the things that we need to do, the right things to help generate value and generate success. In addition to, do we have the right modernized infrastructure? In addition to, are we working on things to where we have the right enterprise policies and and the right producers in the organization? And, that's where the listening tour, assessing whether the organization or the position that you interviewed for are the right things for you.
Yeah, and the listening tour is certainly, I think, a huge deal. And I think we kind of talked about talking about teams. I think for time's sake, we we'll say that for another day, because I think building teams is maybe a whole conversation in itself. But what I do want to kind of circle back in is the value creation part. And the other thing I like that you mentioned before was the ability to be able to truly get the time frame kind of compressed for how you're doing this. But when you talk about how do you marry that with getting buy-in from the organization, so I can create the data culture I want, which takes buy-in from all the different regions of people you're going to be talking to in this listening tour. Sometimes it takes quick wins. So creating a process that allows you to be able to have a vision for where you're going, but also have quick wins along the way. So people within those different business groups, the people that you're talking to, are really seeing that along the way and start buying in and start saying, yeah, my team has to know this. And so you're not being the one always convincing them and selling them on it. They're seeing that for themselves. So that's outstanding. But as you're looking for that, I think the other piece that comes into this that everybody's looking for is what can you do for me? We're all, unfortunately, that's kind of we're selfish people. So what can you do for me? So it gets down to the value that you're going to create when you bring something to them, whether it's strategy or the things that you're going to do. So how do you kind of approach that when you're looking at these, you've done your listening tour, you've talked to the people, you see all these pains and things. How do you kind of establish, the values that go along with us being able to, take on these projects, be able to to establish some of the strategies that you wanted to do within these organizations? What are kind of your thoughts on being able to establish the value and be able to deliver value along the way and show that?
Yeah, Tim, this is the biggest challenge that we're dealing with as an industry now, which is data leaders that often have short tenures is because of the lack of value that we generate. And I don't want to put myself alongside the millions of posts that I see today on LinkedIn as far as, hey, I know the silver bullet to value, because I don't. Now I have some ideas on how we can help assess that. And so as I think about it here is the way that I approach value is the culture of the team has to be the utmost importance. You know, data is not the most sexy kind of style industry as we would like to think it is. And part of it is we're simply supporting successes of those around us. Unfortunately, a lot of us are not kind of on the CEO tenure track. I know we can make an argument for that, but I've been taking kind of Sol Rashidi's approach around the core, the common, the local, and really categorizing on, as we do intake, is we have to be customer obsessed. We have to over communicate. We have to be able to understand the questions that keep our leaders up at night. We have to understand the scope and the requirements. And we have to have set really good due dates. And as you do intake of your process and of your projects, I always focus on kind of 4 quadrants: high value, high cost; high value, low cost; low cost, low value; and low cost or low value, high cost. And as you think about those 4 quadrants, that helps categorize the value that each project have. Now, the variables that determine that high value and high cost can be different ways of assessing that. And so for us, we kind of have some internal key KPIs that we look at for value generation. It's ultimately the business impact, right? What is the financial impact of the market gain that you're kind of potentially going after? What are the hours saved of the project? What are the lives impacted potentially in the scope of the project? And associates training. And other things that we additionally continue to look at is customer satisfaction scores, right? And within kind of inside of a customer satisfaction score, ideally you're asking those right critique questions that help you understand on whether you're executing and you're executing well. But some other things that may be important too are looking at the user growth, looking at time in session with inside of our visualization tools, looking at projects delivered. For us, we have a very large community of practice, which means analytic professionals hands on keyboard that live in our business units, ensuring that the analytics community collaborations that we have amongst our analytics community of practice are people helping get access to the content that they have, because the platform and the services for the community that we provide, giving them what they need in order to be successful. And so those are some of the things that I look at value. But as you continue to do your listening tour, each project is going to be different, and each person's perspective on how you generate value, this is also going to be different. And so, there's this most recent post that I read is one of the most important positions that you can hire is hiring a communications lead for your data strategy and for your data team. That's something that we're evaluating as we actually speak. But as we think about this digital world, it's super hard to get your voice out there, super hard to get your communications out there, but it's so important to help exacerbate the value generation and the over communication to help bring those people along, but also help people understand your vision and your mission ahead.
Love it. And I like the quadrant approach. We've done some very similar things ourselves, but never like in a quadrant approach like that. I think that's it's a very visual way to be able to, and given that we're in the field we are of analytics, a very visual way of being able to express that. I know the value conversation is always tough because there are intrinsic values. There are things that you can actually measure, like the ability to be able to see, make processes go quicker. There's lots of things that you can actually measure there too. But sometimes it's a conversation on, we were using this data before, or we weren't using this data before, but now we're using it because the quality of the data we actually trust now. How do you actually measure that? There's some things that go, with that in as well. So lots of things that I think that we could spend another hour on just kind of going into. But for the sake of time, I know we're trying to keep these to about 30 minutes. So I wanted to kind of give you a chance to really kind of, just from an overall perspective. And again, I know this is a great question for you as you're getting into it, but kind of any final thoughts? And we talked a little bit about this in the first question as far as the organization you work for, but any kind of thoughts for other kind of aspiring, data analytics professionals that are out there? I know you work with them at Rockhurst University a lot. Different things that you're telling them as far as, this is kind of how you build a career in this. This is kind of how you steer that career the right way, or any other thoughts and advice you'd want to give to other professionals out there in this area.
Yeah, I could talk about this topic for days on end, to say the least. You know, one of the biggest things that I got two pieces of advice, I would say. And I would say that I've learned them of recent. One is your career is so important to you in your life and to your successes inside and outside of work and the impact that it has on your family and those around you. And so choose what you want to do, right? And as you put your fingerprint on what you want to try and achieve, revisit that on an active quarterly basis, not on once or twice a year. And get a career mentor. Get 1 or 2 or 3 career mentors. Meet with them actively. It could be inside your organization. It could be outside of your organization. Don't be afraid to send that message to if you simply don't know someone in the community. Someone that you've seen actively posted. That's a great thing about this community in data and analytics is people will respond. And ultimately, you know, in today's market, it's a very candidate-saturated market. And what I mean by that is, unfortunately, we're seeing quite a bit of tech layoffs right now, and that creates a lot of applicants on the job. And so, if you're actively in a search, do your best not to get frustrated. You're going to get rejection emails. You're going to get ghosted by recruiters, and those are challenges at the end of the day. But as we have 2 active positions that we're actively recruiting for and hiring for right now. And you know what I look for in new leaders and new analytic professionals, or even people that have been in the market for 10, 20 years, is the thing that is of the utmost importance for me is making that good, solid cultural hire with a good mix of technical acumen, but someone that understands the business side as much as they can. And you don't necessarily have to have work in that industry. And so, you know, a lot of this from an analytics perspective, I know it may not seem like I'm an extrovert. I mean, I'm not an introvert. I'm actually an extrovert. I'm an introvert forced extrovert. But the communication style and your ability to communicate the business value, understand the community business value, and be able to communicate that in a concise manner, and be able to do so with just a little bit of technical acumen and technology is so hard to get and so hard to find in the market. Yeah. But if I find someone that has the ability to do that, I'm going to hire them any single time. You can teach the business, you can teach the technical aspect, but trying to find that good solid communicator is something that's super hard to teach. So those are the things I value.
Yep. And I appreciate that. I've got a son that's actually a sophomore in college right now, and we're having some of these same exact conversations with him. And, you know, I've been fortunate enough to kind of have my own progress through different things myself as far as how I've got to where I have. And you can see our data nerds stuff behind us. This is an area that I got into, and not because I just was going out to seek it out, but I, you know, kind of fell into it, but loved it. And I think, you know, we chose the term data nerds because we're very passionate about doing this, and our group is. So, you know, finding something that you can be very passionate about, doing the hard work that's not always exciting to do to get there. You know, again, I have to have those conversations, you know, with the sophomore in colleges. Sometimes you're just gonna have to do things because you need to do them. But find an area that you can build towards that you're very passionate about, and it's a whole nother world. And I appreciate the advice. I need to hook you up with my son so y'all can have a more detailed conversation. Maybe he'll listen to you.
So you're hooked up in Tulsa, so maybe we could go out for a game sometime. That'd be fun.
Sounds good. Sounds good. All right, Dylan. Again, I know you've got a lot of things going on, and I appreciate again you taking time away from your paternity leave to have a conversation with us. I would like to probably dig into some other areas, so maybe we can have a follow-up conversation and talk more about you know, building teams and things around that, and how you kind of go about that process. And then I always love digging deeper into, you know, the value proposition and how we're doing things, because that's such a hard conversation, but, you know, it's so valuable if you can do that. Anyway, appreciate your time today, and look forward to staying in touch. And again, hopefully we'll be able to talk again soon. And thanks for everybody who showed up. Thanks for everybody who showed up. This will be out on YouTube and some other areas, so we'll make sure that you're able to find it however you listen to these things. Thanks, guys. Everybody have a great day.